The evening sun was setting, painting the neighborhood in warm golden light. Thomas held his little daughter Emily's hand as they walked back from the park. She was skipping along, humming a song, when suddenly she stopped. Her eyes widened, and she tugged her father's hand tightly. "Daddy, look." Sitting by the curb near their house was a young woman. Her clothes were torn, her hoodie worn out, and her jeans had holes at the knees. A small backpack lay beside her, and her face carried the exhaustion of someone who hadn't slept well in days. She stared blankly at the ground, hugging her knees, her eyes puffy as if she had been crying. Thomas's heart skipped. His instinct told him to keep walking. He was a single father with enough struggles already: work, bills, raising Emily on his own. He didn't have room for more trouble, but Emily wouldn't move. She pointed at the girl with her small finger, her innocent voice trembling. "Daddy, can she live with us, please?" Thomas knelt down to meet his daughter's eyes. "Sweetheart, she's a stranger, we don't even know her." Emily's lips quivered. "But Daddy, she has nowhere to sleep. Look at her, she's so sad." Thomas turned his eyes back to the girl, and in that moment he saw something that struck him deeply. It wasn't just sadness. It was the same emptiness he had once felt years ago when his wife passed away, the feeling of being lost, unwanted, and invisible to the world. Taking a deep breath, Thomas let go of hesitation and walked closer. "Hey," he said gently, his voice careful not to startle her. "Are you okay?" The girl lifted her head slowly. Her eyes were glassy with tears. I'm fine," she muttered, though it was obvious she was. "You don't look fine," Thomas replied softly. "Do you live around here?" She shook her head, clutching her backpack tighter. "No, I don't have anywhere to go tonight." Emily's small voice chimed in, breaking the silence. "Daddy, she can stay with us, right?" She looked at him with those innocent, pleading eyes that always melted his heart. The girl shook her head quickly. No, I don't want to cause trouble. I'll be fine here, just leave me." But Thomas couldn't walk away. Not with his daughter's hand holding his, not with his own heart pulling at him. He remembered the nights he had sat awake, wondering how he would raise Emily alone, praying someone would just notice his pain. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Sarah," she whispered. "All right, Sarah," Thomas said after a pause. "Listen, you don't have to sleep out here tonight. We have a couch. It's not much, but it's warm. You can stay until you figure things out." Sarah's lips parted in shock, her eyes filling again. Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me." Thomas glanced at Emily, who was already smiling brightly. "Because everyone deserves a chance," he answered quietly. That night, Sarah stepped into their small but cozy home. She sat on the couch as Emily proudly handed her a blanket and even her favorite stuffed bunny. "He helps me sleep when I'm scared. You can borrow him tonight," Emily said with the purest smile. Sarah broke down crying, clutching the toy to her chest. For the first time in months, she felt safe. But things weren't easy. The next morning, Thomas's landlord noticed Sarah leaving the house and demanded answers. "You can't just take people in like that, Thomas. If management finds out, you're violating your lease. You could lose your home." Fear washed over Thomas. He couldn't risk Emily losing her stability. That night, he sat Sarah down and told her she might have to leave. But when Emily overheard, she burst into tears and hugged Sarah tightly. "No, she's my friend now. She's family." Those words hit Thomas harder than anything. He couldn't ignore the bond forming right before his eyes. He stood his ground with the landlord, promising Sarah would contribute once she found work. Reluctantly, the landlord gave him a warning, but let it go. Over the weeks, Sarah became part of their lives. She helped with house chores, read bedtime stories to Emily, and started looking for jobs. Slowly, she smiled more often. Slowly, she began to heal. But challenges still came. Money was tighter than ever. Thomas sometimes skipped meals to make sure Emily and Sarah had enough to eat. Sarah noticed and felt guilty. One night she told Thomas, "I should go, you're sacrificing too much because of me." Thomas shook his head firmly. "No, you're not a burden, Sarah. We don't turn our backs on family. We'll figure this out together." Sarah eventually found a job at a local diner. She worked long hours, but every evening she came home with a tired smile, greeted by Emily's laughter. For the first time in years, the little house was full of life again. The truest test came months later when Emily fell dangerously ill. Thomas was terrified, packing hospital hallways, afraid he might lose his daughter, but Sarah never left Emily's side. She held her hand through every night, whispering stories, singing lullabies, praying with the same desperation Thomas felt. When Emily finally recovered, Thomas realized something he had been denying himself. Sarah wasn't just a guest anymore, she had become part of them. Years later, when Emily grew older, she would always remember that day, the day she saw a lonely girl on the street and begged her father to take her in. And she would say, "That was the day our family became whole." Because sometimes, the most life-changing miracles begin with the simplest words from a child's heart. "Daddy, can she live with us?"